Okay, I have pressed the go live button. So in theory, we are live. Hello, everybody. Let's just do what we always do and wait for somebody to confirm that I am indeed here. Yes. Okay, that looks like that might be one of those. Hello, everybody. Welcome to SerenityOS office hours. And it is Friday. So we're going to do what we always do on Fridays and take random questions, technical, non-technical, whatever you want to talk about, SerenityOS related. And it seems like our friend Ride or Hitchhike has preceded us with a question here about streams. So I guess we can start with that. Just give people a chance to stumble in. Wow, look at these nice hand wave emojis. They look a little bit off somehow. I guess I changed the font size of the chat window, so that might be why it looks weird to me. Anyway, okay, so Ride or Hitchhike was asking, let me start off the questions. What do you think about the Stream API? Do you think it's viable, and do you think it could be improved? If so, how can it be improved? So I haven't looked at it enough to find anything obviously wrong with it, but I'm sure it can be improved. If you have a specific pull request or part of the code that you think we should look at, you could be more specific, but I'm happy to see that there's a new Stream API in development, and I think the old setup where we had sort of the very inflexible I/O device abstraction in libcore, it's nice to move away from that. Mati says, do you consider introducing NixOS style OS configuration? I consider many things, but there is no plan for one thing or the other. Ulrich asks, is it hard to port other languages to run in SerenityOS? I'm an OCaml developer and kind of would like to add a port for it. Well, this is a lovely question because you could totally add a port for it, and it's impossible to tell how tricky it would be before you actually do it. So this is the kind of question that you kind of have to answer for yourself by attempting it. But at least based on how other random languages have been, it's like a mixed bag. Some languages are easy to port because they have very simple Unixy runtimes, and other languages are harder to port because they have like more elaborate they have like these tendrils that really dig into the underlying system. So I guess it really depends on what kind of dependencies your language has and what kind of facilities it expects from the system. But yeah, as I was saying, the only way to really find out is to attempt it. So I strongly encourage you to do that. I promise you that you will have fun. And you may also be a little bit frustrated. But that's just how it goes. Simon Holmes says, question regarding namespaces. What is the latest and greatest strategy? Looking at Pixel Paint, everything is wrapped. Looking at Mail, nothing. Looking at Taskbar, some. Thoughts going forward. So the you're referring to C++ namespaces, right? And also I just had to reboot my machine because of the camera. So let me start up CLion. This doesn't look like a question. Is this some kind of spam? I can't even tell. So namespaces, what you're referring to is the way that we namespace stuff in, let's say, Taskbar, like you were saying. So we often wrap things in namespaces for applications. So libraries are one thing. Like with libraries, it's easy. We just wrap everything in the namespace. But when it comes to application code, we also often make like an application namespace and put all of the application classes and functions into it, except main. And I think that's a trend that we've been moving towards. But as you noted, some applications have been left out, and that's just because they are either old or they were written by somebody who was not aware of the trend. So my perspective is that we should just move towards namespacing everything. And part of what I really like about namespacing everything is that it makes stack traces look really sweet, because at the start of every stack frame, you sort of see which library or executable the symbol is in. Also, I have to clear my throat, so let me just mute the microphone. Okay, hopefully that worked and you didn't have to hear it. Still learning the machinery here. But yeah, so I think we should move towards having these type of things everywhere. So if that's missing in mail, I did not even notice that, to be honest, but that's definitely something that we can improve. So we can instead, you know, turn this into maybe something like mail main widget or whatever. Let's see. So 1337 is asking, did you recommend Hollow Knight in the past? Yeah, I may have. I really enjoy Hollow Knight. I was playing it a lot last year, and didn't quite finish the God Home DLC, but I guess I will return to that at some point because it was a lot of fun. And Mark Skilbeck. Mark Skilbeck. What an interesting last name. With the super chat. Thank you, Mark, very much. Saying, thanks for all the great videos and code. Next coffee is on me. My friend, that's going to be more than just one coffee or tea. So thank you very much for that. I really, really appreciate the support. That is awesome. Thank you. So Mati was asking, what parts of Unix architecture do you consider outdated? Well, I don't know that I would consider any part of Unix architecture like inherently outdated in that there is like an obviously superior alternative. I think most architectural warts in Unix have pros and cons, so there's always trade-offs. But I guess something that is just a constant source of sadness or frustration maybe is the just the underlying performance implications of the fork and exec model of launching executables. And there are various paths forward for that. So it's not like this isn't the problem that like other Unix systems aren't aware of. Like I think all Unixes struggle to get good performance with fork and exec. But I don't know if it's outdated. Maybe I would consider it outdated. It's just that it's outdated, but like there's no easy one-to-one replacement either because of the extreme flexibility of fork and exec, because you can fork and then do a bunch of things in the child process before you exec. So the common thing that people say about fork and exec is that instead of fork and exec, you can just have a spawn syscall that spawns a new process, but then there's all these edge cases in real world programs where they want to fork, do a bunch of stuff, and then exec. So I feel like that's one of the more sensitive Unix areas. Let's see. Ulrich was asking, would it potentially be easier to use the SerenityOS LD when building instead? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. When you're building, I mean, we don't have our own linker. Nobody wrote a linker for the system yet. Like we're just using either, we're using the linker that comes in your tool chain. So before you build Serenity, you build a tool chain. Typically people build GCC and bin utils from GNU, and then you're just using GNU LD tailored for the Serenity target. And it's not really optional, like you have to use it or it won't work. Private Membership asks, I was always curious about your room structure. Is that a wardrobe in your left side? Yeah, kind of. It is a closet. I am in a walk-in closet here. It's my little hacking room, which also doubles as storage. I like to be in a very simple space with no distractions. So this is kind of nice for me. I think many people might find it, I don't know, constrained and cramped, but I don't mind it. Retro Game Plus is asking, hi Andreas, great to see all the work you do. I hope your mom's cat is doing well too. My mom's cat is doing well, a little too well sometimes. She made some interesting breakthroughs last year because my mom's cat used to be an indoor cat. And then last year, my mom finally mustered up the courage to let her cat go out by herself outside. And she was, apprehensive about being outside at first, but then she started going like further and further away from the house. And then one day she started killing things and bringing them to my mom and being really proud of herself. So that was an interesting character arc to witness. And I think my mom called me kind of distraught one day because her cat had brought home a dead bunny. And I thought, that's almost like a little bit impressive for a former indoor cat. Anyway, she's doing well. So Ryder Hitchhike says, another thing I'd like to get your thoughts on. In hashtag 11890, there's a new macro called IPC client connection, which works like CObject, but is used in server connection subclasses in order to construct the socket along with the connection object. Do you think that this makes sense? As more and more classes use error propagations, what do you think about the customized factory functions? I guess let's go look at that thing. Okay, so this is a pull request, and then I'm supposed to look for IPS client connection. Sure. All right, fine. Let's look at the whole diff for once. So what does this macro do? It adds, okay, so first it adds the object abstract just to get the class name getter. And then it also expands into a factory function for this class, which attempts to connect as well. That's kind of interesting, but I guess that you always want to do that. I would say that just based on the fact that it connects when you construct it, I would call it maybe something other than try create. At the same time, if the class's name is like something client connection, then maybe it's kind of implied by the class name that creating a connection will connect. So forget what I was saying. Here is a C style comment for some reason. So this seems like a generally good idea to just have these. And as we move towards more and more sort of structured error propagation, the old construction macro that's inserted by CObject, which is this guy right here. So this guy inserts construct and try create, and they're sort of automatically generated factory functions. And I think that in many cases, like these are not going to make sense anymore. And we'll want to change the way that we do construction anyway, so that errors have a chance to come out. I'm not exactly sure what is the pattern moving forward, but I think what you've done in your macro here is good, because now you're creating like a better try create function that does all of the necessary things to actually return an object that we would consider constructed, fully constructed, because a fully constructed client connection object, in my view, is also connected, not just constructed, but connected. So this seems like a reasonable thing. Let's see. Louise is asking, do you know 10x editor? I do not know 10x editor. What is 10x editor? 10x editor, a high performance C++ editor, and then they want cache because it gives me Discord access. It's kind of interesting. I'm not familiar with this, but maybe it's something interesting. Let's see. Piotr says, hello, Andreas. How do you reflect on not going to college/university? Do you regret it? So it's something it used to bother me a lot in the past. And especially when I would be in meetings or something, and I would sense, or I would start to feel like my coworkers are discussing something, and then I would imagine that I don't know what they're talking about, but probably they learned it in university, and that's why I'm left out of the conversation. And that would typically be something like my coworkers would start discussing some obscure data structure that I was not familiar with, and I got this idea in my head that, oh man, that's because I didn't go to university. I'm not familiar with this particular graph algorithm or whatever. But I think that was just me being kind of paranoid about it and having all of these like inferiority complex issues about it. And then at some point I just got over it and realized that everybody has patchy knowledge. Like nobody knows everything. Everybody knows a little bit. And I have a skill set myself that like I know a lot of things that people who went to university don't learn about there, and vice versa. And I think the best thing in any team is to have people of a sort of a diverse intellectual background. So I've come to appreciate the differences that I see between myself and other people. But I definitely felt bad about them in the past, but now I think it's actually a really good thing. And I absolutely do not regret not going to college or university. But I think if I had not spent that time learning a skill, like I was learning programming while not in college or university, right? So if I had spent that time just goofing off, I might feel differently. But yeah. So Adam Jorgensen says, hi, Andreas. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too. Does SerenityOS make use of smart pointers? Yes, extensively. And wait, this is not the... Where's the thing? Here. We have a document in documentation called Smart Pointers. And this document details all of the different smart pointers that we use around the codebase. So definitely recommend reading that if you are just getting started in the system. Let's see, Breadhead23 says, I'm starting my first OS course at university this semester. I'm really looking forward to learning more about it thanks to you. That's great. I'm happy to hear that. I have never taken an OS course in university, obviously, since I was just talking about how I didn't go to university. But it seems to me like a good environment to learn about these concepts and to sort of study them interactively by hacking on simple operating systems. So I think you're going to have a good time with it. Somebody with whose name is Period, says, "Hi Andreas, thoughts about Rust? I have not written more than 100,000 lines of Rust, so I don't really have an opinion about Rust worth hearing." Mati says, "Is your office placed in basement?" No, I am on the ground floor. Let's see. Ulrich says, "The chat is too async to ask follow-up questions." Yeah, I know. Part of that is my fault, obviously, because I take too long to chat with everybody, but or I take too long to respond to questions. But there's only so much you can do about that. So what I meant was that I could use LD in the Serenity toolchain when building OCaml instead of porting. I sadly gotta go, so I won't hear your response. Oh, shit. Well, so if you come back to hear the answer, I guess you could definitely use LD in the Serenity toolchain when building OCaml. If you can convince your OCaml build system to do that, you'll also want to build any like C or C++ code in your compiler with the Serenity GCC or Serenity G++ as well. Or the linker is not going to be able to assemble it into anything that makes sense to the system. But yeah, so essentially what you want to do is you just want to put the Serenity toolchain in your path and then inform the OCaml compiler or interpreter or whatever build system that it should use the Serenity toolchain rather than the system default compilers. Private membership says, "Your place to work is really nice. Personally, having a big place when working means more distractions, like you said." So I guess we're thinking the same way. Yeah, I mean, I really think so. Since I've been in this small room here, I've had like my most productive time programming ever. So, and obviously there's more factors to that than just like the space that I'm in, but it's really nice to have control of the distractions, and like there's nothing in front of me other than the screen, and there's nothing in the corner of my eye that will catch my attention, and it's just nice. I'm very, very easily distracted, which I guess might sound surprising to anybody who's watched my videos, because I tend to not get distracted in the videos, but that is precisely because I make an environment that doesn't distract me. Let's see. Writer Hitchhike says, "Without the C-style comment, the backslash after the comment consumes the rest of the macro." Oops. All right, fair enough. Basic Evangelist, Bazik Evangelist says, "Would you be opposed to web server having a config?" I don't see why I would be opposed to that. It seems like something you would want a web server to have, although I don't know. I mean, yeah, it seems like something the web server should have for sure. Like, it's not like, I mean, if you think longer term, it's not like everybody's going to want to have the exact same web server configuration. But it might be smoother to do stuff with command line options at the moment, but I will leave that sort of decision making to the person who actually works on it. Maybe that's you. And then they follow up with just something to allow hiding certain directories. Right. So you want to hide some directories, so have like an exclude path or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you can add config options for that, or you can also add command line options, whichever. Just go for something that makes sense to you, and we'll take a look at it. Jagger DeLeo says, "Well, hello, friends. I am wearing my Ladyball hoodie right now." That is sweet. I don't have my Ladyball hoodie in this room. I do have this one, though, which is similar. I don't know if that can actually be seen on the camera with the light. Anyway, I appreciate that you are repping the SerenityOS community with your sweet hoodie. Very cool. Alex Major says, "I did not go to university. I do get that feeling still. It's less now, but I can understand." Yeah. I think programming is an interesting profession where you can very much get by without like formal education. And there are obviously a bunch of places where culture will prevent you from getting hired. You know, there are companies where they feel very strongly about like, we want like university graduates to work here, and you're not going to work there if you're not a university graduate. But many places are very welcoming to people of all shapes and colors in terms of background. So that's it's a pretty nice industry. Like I look at my my brother, for example, who is a doctor, and it's not like he didn't really have a choice, right? He had to go and get a formal education in medicine in order to practice as a doctor. But we have much more freedom in what we do here as programmers. So that's pretty cool. Character X says, "Hey Andreas, what are your thoughts on the Zig programming language?" My thoughts are that I have not written more than 100,000 lines of Zig, so I don't really have an opinion about Zig that's worth hearing. Paul says, web server config and command line is more flexible. I'm not sure I understand that. Like, that's two separate... I don't know which one is more flexible, config and command line. Maybe you're saying that we could have both. I mean, that's probably the most flexible. So you would have a config file that allows you to set up sort of a basic set of settings, and then you could override them on the command line. And Linus says, +1 for native HTTP 403 in web server. Currently, I had to configure traffic to prevent people from opening weird stuff in /sys that makes it spin. Right. So Linus did a thing, which is at... Wait, where is his thing? Is it here? Wait, what? How do I get through to it anyway? I thought it would just let me go through. Oh, I guess because of HTTPS. No? Okay, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I thought you could go in this way. Maybe I have the wrong URL. Linus has set up a SerenityOS web server somewhere. I don't know where it is apparently, but maybe we will learn pretty soon when he tells me I'm doing something silly. Basic Evangelist continues asking, related to the previous question, what would you think of the config being in something like JS? That sounds really overkill for some basic exclude paths. I guess that's off the top of my head. Oh, Serenity said, Linus says no OS. Double quote. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, there we are. Yes, this is... I'm gonna paste it. Yeah, I mean, you effectively already pasted it in the chat, but here it goes as a URL. This is Linus's machine running SerenityOS hosting web server. That's pretty sweet. And then, as I understand, if you enter into the sys directory, God damn it. You mother fricker. All right. If you go into the sys directory, you used to get troubles, but now instead, I got into trouble. How did I not see that coming? Oh. Wow, I'm a little bit shocked. Can't believe what just happened. Miles says, I think that's definitely changing in regard to getting a degree. I think Apple dropped their degree requirements, and when FANG does it, other companies are only a few years behind. I mean, yeah, that's just, I think there's some truth to that. Although, isn't it Mang now instead of FANG? But yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Autumn Jurgensen says, what do you think about Microsoft's safe version of standard functions? For example, _s. What is that? _s. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on C APIs because we don't really use C APIs in our code. So, I don't really have a nuanced opinion on like, is this like slightly less foot gunny API better or not than the other thing? So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I guess my strong opinion is that it's better to use a language that doesn't force you to think about strings as these things that have like a 0 byte at the end. I think the null terminated string is like one of the least pleasant things about working with C APIs. So, wow, that's a really unstructured answer. I think I was just caught off guard. I don't have any answer for this. I don't think anything about it because I haven't really used it. My recommendation to anybody in a position where they have to choose between string copy and string copy _s or whatever other version would be to see if they can use a slightly friendlier C family language to avoid having to think about details like this. Basic Evangelist says, I jokingly suggested that in the Discord, but it actually seems like a maybe good idea. I guess that's about using JavaScript as a configuration language. So obviously you can do that, but it seems like just like an invitation to trouble. Like baking a JavaScript interpreter into the web server instead of just having a simple config language. When the day comes that you need to have like runtime configuration logic in the web server, maybe that's an option to evaluate. I think that day may come sometime, but I don't feel that we are there just now. Jagger DeLeo says, I didn't finish university, but got a full-time 6-figure job from a guy I met there, so the networking aspect was well worth it. But I was only hireable because of things I learned outside of school. Yeah, I've heard this story and variants of this story so many times, and it's similar to my own story. Just I didn't even start university, but networking has definitely been helpful to me. It just I did my networking in high school, and I got jobs through friends I had from high school who were really into programming as well. I think networking is absolutely important. As much as people like to think of programmers as asocial, awkward, nerdy types, there are absolutely great career benefits to networking as a programmer. So I do encourage everybody to do that. Let's see. Oh man, I'm so far behind. Yeah, and then everybody's laughing at me because of the Rickroll. Sure. Let's see. So Jagger says, I could see a JavaScript config file for web server being useful if the goal was to be Nginx, where it can do the kitchen sink. Right. So at the moment, like let's ground ourselves in reality here, right? Like what the web server does at the moment, if I can get the right URL this time, and I'm not going to click on the sys. Okay, wait, it doesn't work at all now. Okay. Yeah, so this is what it does right now. It makes these little index pages, and then it can also dump out contents of individual files. We're not quite at the point where we need to think about advanced configuration. We need to think about like basic features, and we will iterate by adding basic features and maybe improving the performance, because I saw somebody was complaining, was it Linus complaining that the requests to this web server take longer and longer the longer it's been online, and that certainly seems to be an issue. Did we just find a bug? Dot files maybe don't work. Anyway, Vesna says, I'm not a hacker, so I won't come here again, but great respect for all of you. When you mentioned 90s, I thought interesting, good idea. By the way, you disappointed me that you don't want to sing rock. All the best. All right, well, nice having you here. Vesna has been here in a bunch of the recent office hours, and not a programmer, so I am impressed that you stuck it out for so long as you did, but this is indeed a programming and hacking related channel, so if those are not your interests in life, it can be hard to sit here and listen to me talk to people about it. But nice having you here, and see you around. Paul says, I'm having problems staying connected in chat and video link. Just a heads up. Okay. Let's take a look at the stream health. It says stream health is excellent. So as far as YouTube and I know, there's nothing wrong with the stream, video or audio. Okay, Valtteri says, I got the job, smiley face. That's awesome. Congratulations. I spoke to Valtteri just the other day, and he told me that he was looking at a new job in a very interesting place with some very interesting benefits. And to hear that you got the job, I can just say congratulations. That's super awesome. If you are not familiar with Valtteri, he has a YouTube channel where he works on ray tracing renderer, and he's up to 13 videos about that apparently. So I'm gonna link his channel in the chat so that you can all go and watch him hack on ray tracing. I like Valtteri's channel because he works on something that sort of, I feel like it goes over my head a lot, and I enjoy watching somebody make progress on something that goes like a little bit over my head. It's very stimulating. So you might enjoy that as well. Anyway, congrats on the job, for sure. That's super awesome. I'm very happy for you. Zach says, hi, Andreas and Serenity team. Just wanted to say, keep up the great work. I love the project. Thank you, Zach. I am glad to hear that. And the Serenity team, indeed. I will forward the message to the team. Centrac says, I started up SerenityOS 2 days ago. Looking forward to doing some work on it. 2 days. So in 2 days, I'm sure you have already encountered at least a handful of interesting bugs that you can get to work on. So it'll be interesting to see what you end up doing. Big Smoke CIC says, university was a pretty disappointing experience for me personally. You mentioned you tried school again a few years ago though, but it just wasn't for you. What specifically did you dislike about it? So, truthfully, the reason that I didn't have a good time going back to school was because there was not enough programming. They wanted me to do all this other stuff, and I was just not super interesting. And I kind of drifted out after I started taking an English class and that's when I started drifting out because it was just not super interesting. And like all the time when I was in school, I would like hurry up to finish my school assignments and then just get back to programming. And at some point I just told myself that this is a little bit silly when I can just program all the time instead. Samuel says, what's the plan for SerenityOS? The plan is, there is no plan. Jagger says, stuff being over my head is exactly why I keep watching Serenity videos. That is very nice. And it's funny, though, because so many times when I start working on Serenity stuff, I feel like I'm very near the roof or the ceiling where things would start going over my head, and I sort of push myself upwards so that I can catch up with it. And I hope that by watching it, you can feel your own head get closer to the ceiling as well, if that makes sense. Nico with the super chat. Thank you, Nico. Spoiler alert. This happened last week as well. Nico sent a spoiler alert super chat, and I couldn't figure out if this is just an icon or if there's an actual spoiler somewhere that I can reveal by clicking somehow. But I'm just going to assume that it's just an icon and say thank you, Nico, for the super chat. And then we got a super chat from Venkatesh as well. Thank you very much for that. And no particular message, just a super chat. Super appreciated. Thank you very much. I did talk about this in a video I posted yesterday about advertising on the channel. And I got a lot of nice comments about that. So basically, what happened was that I started, like after New Year's, I started getting messages almost every day from companies that want to do ads on the channel. And what the type of ad would be like that it would just be me talking about some product. So it's not like I would insert a pre-recorded ad, but rather they want me to describe to you why their product is super sweet and why you should buy it. So like native integrated advertising, right? And I'm just really not comfortable with that, especially given that all of the things that they wanted to advertise were just things that I don't personally use and I have no interest in using. So, I mentioned in that video when I talked about that I really appreciate the donations and things like that are coming in different ways, because it allows me to ignore these advertisement requests. And then Krister says that I should sell out and tell us I don't endorse. Right, yeah, start. That would be a bit dirty. Like sell out and then just wink wink after doing the ads. No. But a lot of people ask me like, what kind of products do people want to sell on the channel? And basically it's a mix of weird, cheap trinkets and also mobile games. Most of them are mobile games. And like, it's exactly the type of mobile game that you imagine, like these heavy in-app purchase type games where like this is this formula thing, you know, like build your clan, select your warriors, level up your camp, whatever, and then buy coins and treasure chests and stuff with in-app purchases. And that would just be so out of character for me to start the videos by trying to sell these things to you. So that's why we don't do that. Make numbers go up game. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the kind of things. Amusingly, no VPNs, at least not this year. But okay, let me just not forget. So Krister said, I came here from watching one of your old videos. Damn you, lack of content. And my eardrum was blown due to the improvement in audio quality. Good job. Indeed. The audio quality has certainly improved as I got a slightly bigger budget for the channel. So I got a better microphone, and I also learned how to use software a bit better. So I'm glad that the improvement is noticeable. Let's see. Michael says, I would only do it with things you do indeed actually endorse. Right. Tim says, do you have any tips or resources how to make applications secure against exploits? Are there certain actions that are especially vulnerable? I can imagine that reading and writing data could be. So, I mean, I'm definitely not the best person to answer this question because I'm interested in application security and vulnerability mitigation and things like that. But there are many people and many resources who have put like a lot more time into thinking about this than I have, especially from an educational perspective. But as a general rule, the way I think about it is that the less you do, the less chance that you screw something up, right? So if you turn that into a principle, you would have each piece of software that you expose to inputs from an outside source, you want that software to do as little as possible. So yeah, and have like the least amount of privilege, least amount of responsibility, and then you have a smaller chance of screwing it up. I guess that would be my number one tip. Niaz says, it's the same question as yesterday. How do you monetize an open source project the right way? Ooh, that is a good question. Oh, wait, let me clear my throat. Okay. How do you monetize an open source project the right way? I'm not exactly sure. The path that I have sort of found for monetizing what I do is certainly working out for me, but I'm not sure that it would be the best for anybody else. But I guess if I try to distill some of it, I would say that if you want to monetize your work on open source, first thing to figure out is like, do you want to monetize the software that you're making, or do you want to monetize sort of your personality as well? In my case, since I'm just giving away the software to everybody and it has no real business use case in the near future, my only real option is to monetize sort of myself, right? And the work that I do, and what I do to promote that is, I guess, create content around the software project. So it seems to me that one way to unlock a lot of monetization potential for open source work is to create content and to build an audience that's like interested in you and your content, and to make something of value for people that is not just the software that you make, but also like I guess how do I express this? Like I have a lot of things that I have learned from other people throughout my career, right? And I really want to pass those things on to other people and share everything I've learned. So that is sort of the value that I try to package up in the content that I make so that I can share everything cool that I've learned. And then I try to sort of passively monetize that by having like Google AdSense and accepting donations like Patreon and GitHub sponsors and stuff, but not directly selling anything. And that seems to work for me, but I don't know. Like if you want to monetize something and you don't want to make content and you're not selling the software, then I'm outside of the area where I have any good answers. So I don't know what the answer is. I guess a typical thing that many do is like they give you the software for free and then you can offer to host it. If it's any kind of server software or anything that needs to be installed and online, then offering a hosted version of the software seems to be working pretty well for many projects. But I don't know if that's the right way. It's just something that I see a bunch of projects doing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the best answer to this because I've only experienced like my particular niche of open source monetization. Maybe somebody else has more insight about it. Let's see. I am running far behind, I see. Jagger DeLeo says, C-Line isn't native advertising, right? Or did JetBrains just give you a license? I don't know. It's not really native advertising. They gave me a license a year ago, and we did one video together, I guess, which was me giving away 2 licenses to 2 random comments. And but the only thing I got out of that was the C-Line license, which is about to expire. But nowadays we are in the C-Line open source program, so we get C-Line for free that way. But I have no financial relationship with JetBrains or C-Lines, in case that's what you're asking. Jordan says, I want to start an audio project like a basic DAW, but I don't know where to start actually. Been following you for some time now, and it's super interesting and motivating. Keep up the good work. You don't know where to start actually. So, I don't know. My experience with audio was like, it's very limited, but I really enjoyed making a simple wave generator and a simple screen piano where I could just press a button and it would make like a sawtooth, a sine, or a square wave with a note corresponding to the key. I think at least that's where I would start if I wanted to build a DAW. Just make something that can create a wave that just comes out in the speaker so you can hear what you're doing. And but you know, that's I like to work incrementally, so that suits me well. You might be different. I should do more audio hacking at some point. Basic Evangelist says, build your operating system, level up your code. Indeed. Dev0 says, how to get in open source world and contribute in projects like SerenityOS. That's easy. You just find something that you want to do, like fix a bug, for example, and then you do it and open up a pull request according to the contribution guidelines of the project you want to contribute to. Of course, it's like different for every project. Every project has its own flow, and my personal favorite thing to do would be to choose one project and decide that, like, okay, so I'm going to embed myself into this project for a while and join their chat rooms, follow their mailing lists or whatever they have, and get to know the people and try to fix some bugs and get into it that way. But the best way to get into open source is to work on the software to improve it somehow, right? Adam Strell says, hello, is it a code smell that Serenity doesn't compile with more aggressive optimizations? I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Do you mean that it is, if you try to compile with like 03 or something somewhere, then something breaks because of that? I don't know. This concept of code smell always strikes me as like it's very, very vague, and everybody has their own interpretation of it. So I guess I don't really understand what the problem is. Like, if you're asking, if what you're saying is that if I turn on some optimization, then the compiler complains about a warning that wasn't previously there, then if the warning is legitimate, then that's a problem. Sure. Crystalline says, hello, today's stream is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah. I never heard from Raid Shadow Legends, actually. I know this is like the big meme mobile game on YouTube, but the mobile games that are contacting me are smaller and just as sleazy, presumably, but I don't know. I didn't, to be honest, I didn't actually try any of the games. I just looked at the artwork that they sent me, and I could tell just from the logos that this is some nonsense. Kleines Filmrötchen says, how's SMP coming along? As you know, I'm really waiting for it, though I can't contribute anything to it myself. Well, that's where you're wrong, my friend. I'm sure you can contribute to it yourself. Don't limit yourself to these ideas that there are things you can't contribute to. I'm sure you could contribute greatly. In fact, you could become a supermaster of SMP. That's what it stands for, Supermaster Programmer. And I know that you have the potential to become a Supermaster Programmer. Ryder Hitchhike says, as an avid Cookie Clicker player, I am very, very offended. Well, Cookie Clicker is free, isn't it? At least I hope that you're playing some kind of free Cookie Clicker game. If you are paying like real life money for more grandmas, then I feel sorry for you. Valtteri says, if you had another offer like with Sea Lion that you try out a product and then promote it if you like it, you'd probably be open to doing that, right? Well, so with Sea Lion, I had already started using it before I was in touch with them. So, but like, yeah, to answer the question directly, I think if somebody came to me and they said, I have this really kick-ass programming tool, do you want to try it? And then I would probably try it if it seems like a kick-ass tool. And if it turns out, wow, this is really kick-ass, then of course I would want to tell other people that I learned about this kick-ass tool. So sure, I would be open to that. Let's see. Tim Schumann says, I was like, what the frick does marine wildlife have to do with JetBrains? Oh my god, I'm... Wait, I scrolled too far. Let's see. Centrax says, I know ACK is Serenity's C++ templates and containers, but what does it stand for? That is definitely a disputed question. There are many answers, and there used to be one correct answer, but it's morphed into something that has many different answers. So I would encourage you to lurk on the Discord server to learn more about the alternative possibilities for what ACK might stand for. Dominic says, we should talk more about culture, not money. And I really like culture around SerenityOS. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I also really like our culture. I think it's a very encouraging culture and very inquisitive, curious, and very not judgmental, which is sort of a prerequisite to have curiosity and innovation happen. So yeah, I really like the culture. Of course, other people might like other parts of the culture or other aspects of it, or they might perceive it very differently, but I like what I see. Gustavo says, I think the Asa Sprite is a good example. You can compile it yourself or buy the binary. Generally, people will not want to learn how to compile software if the price is fair. Yeah, that's actually a decent point too. If you can like package something up in a nice way, then people might very well be willing to pay for bundled versions of the software, like with like an installer and auto upgrade mechanism, stuff like that. Piotr says, I'm coding my hobby project and it excites me so much that I even feel kind of pressure to work on it all the time and finish it as fast as possible. Any tips how to relax and enjoy the process? Well, I don't know. I guess if you're working really hard on something and you're not enjoying the process, then maybe what you just need to do, it's going to sound really strange, but maybe you just need to do a little bit less of it and make time for something else as well. My favorite thing to use for this type of sort of antagonistic force is physical training. So I like to go and lift weights, and it takes up some time and it makes me physically tired, and it makes me enjoy the mental work of programming even more because it has sort of a counterbalancing physical thing that I do as well. But this is a very luxurious problem that you have here. Like you're so excited about what you're doing that that you feel pressured to do even more of it. It's I love that feeling when you're so excited about something that you're hacking on that you just falling all over yourself to work even more on it. It's a great feeling, but I do think that just counterbalancing it with some kind of physical activity can be very helpful. Let's see. Oh, hey, look at that, super chats. Niaz saying, thanks for the advice. I will go for the content/personality route. For now, it looks approachable and low risk. Yeah, I mean, if you're a decently nice person, then I think you can definitely build a base of content and like market your personality, and you'll probably have some success doing that if you have interesting things to share. So I think you can do well with that, and I look forward to seeing what you end up doing. It would be great if you could link to us at some point with whatever we end up doing so we can take a look and share it. Oh, and also, thanks for the super chat. And Philip here as well with a super chat and a cowboy emoji, no less. Thank you, Philip, for the cowboy super chat. Very much appreciate that. Is that a cowboy hat in this picture? We gotta take a look at that. It appears that this young man is wearing a cowboy hat in his profile picture. So thank you for the super chat, Mr. Cowboy. Really appreciate that. Let's see. Alex Major says, smaller mobile games, no Serenity ports then. Right. So the mobile games that have been trying to advertise on the channel are definitely not available on Serenity. They are not open source projects either, so it's not like I could port them even if I wanted to. But I also don't want to. If somebody came to me and they said, I have made a mobile game that works on the Serenity browser, then I would probably be impressed enough to be curious and curious enough to see what they have to say. But so far, it's nothing like that. Nico says, GCC emitting different warnings at different optimization levels is a code smell for GCC. Ooh, there's some spicy propaganda here from Nico, who works on Clang and LLVM, but I suppose he has a point. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get different warning levels at different warnings at different optimization levels is unfortunate, but it also makes some amount of sense to me, because, you know, like optimization, you run additional optimization steps that transform the code in some way, and the transformed code allows one of the warning mechanisms to flag something that it couldn't see before. So it does make sense to me that the transformations sort of enable the compiler to detect things. But it is always like a bit surprising and weird. Let's see. Radiant Mango says, would some of the deeper explanations here / Discord be something that would fit among the man pages? For example, the ACK badge explanation in one of the office hours a while back, which would be sad to lose. So, I actually have on my GitHub IO blog, I have a page about batch right here, and it's the best description I could give of it. I don't think I could do a better job of it today. So when it comes to something that like these things that come up again and again, like how does this thing work? How does that thing work? We do try to write things down, and I agree that good information would be sad to lose. And there are probably things that we've talked about in office hours that would be good to write down. I could definitely be better about that myself. Like after office hours, after I stop the stream, I immediately forget everything that we talked about. And then that's just how my brain is like. And then like half an hour later, somebody, or several hours later, somebody watches the stream, like the replay of the stream, and then they ask something in a comment, and then I have to go and rewatch the stream to figure out what the heck I was saying. But yeah, we could definitely do a better job of documenting stuff that gets talked about here. It's just, I don't have a structure for that at the moment. Tim Schumann says, to whoever asked the question about getting into open source, my best advice is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Yes, absolutely. I think that's like the best description of working on open source projects I can think of, like how it feels. It's really just like, you never get to be fully comfortable when working on open source projects, because there's so much randomness and entropy, especially in like communities around open source, because everybody is there on a semi-volunteer basis usually, and people come and go, and people have like you have people of different ages, people with different command of English, and people of all kinds of experience levels, and there's just this random melting pot of people, and it's really nice. I love it. You know, that's where I want to spend as much of my time as I can. But a big part of that is like, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's an uncomfortable space. But it's a really fun space. Big Smoke CIC says, what is your approach towards studying lower level hardware interaction concepts? For example, what did you personally do to get familiar with the ACP standard? So I am not actually super familiar with the ACP standard. I have some basic understanding of it, and I have hacked around some parts of it. But usually if I have to understand some low-level thing, I just try to dig out, like these ancient PDFs that describe how the thing works, and maybe look at some code that interacts with it and try to just get some idea of what to do. Although I guess a more actionable suggestion is one thing I almost always do when I have problems hacking on Serenity is that I like to go into the QEMU source code, for example. So if I want to look at, let's say, how the hard drive works, then I would go in their hard drive directory IDE and maybe like ahci.c, and then I would sort of read the software implementation of an emulated AHCI drive, and from that sort of try to divine how this thing works. I find that reading emulator source code is just a lot easier and more natural to me as a programmer than reading data sheets and specs. But of course, that does carry the problem with it that like you would be targeting a specific emulated implementation of something, so it might not run properly on real hardware. But it has been a great resource to me, certainly when debugging, for example. Like if I have some bug in a driver in the Serenity kernel, and then I can, instead of reading the data sheets, I can go and look at the QEMU sources, which we're running in QEMU here, right? So it's like reading the other side of the mirror, sort of to understand what's happening inside the machine that you're talking to. Let's see, let me not get too far behind. Tim Schumann says, my first open source contribution was 200-ish hours of reading code and modifying code to understand it, and about 16 hours of writing code. My goodness. That sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. Man, I don't remember what my very first open source contribution was. I think I made a patch for like the Finger Daemon on BSD systems or something like that in 2003. Or maybe the Finger client. There was some like double free or something like that I ran into, and I made a patch for it and sent it to somebody. But I don't recall exactly what the details were. But it was a similar distribution of time. Like I spent a ton of time trying to understand the code and figure out like why is it double freeing, and then much shorter amount of time actually making the change, of course. Let's see, we got some super chats from Harris, who says, thanks for all your work. I truly love the feel of the OS. Do you prefer any analog methods for note-taking, long-term storage, etc.? I prefer digital note-taking, honestly. I do my note-taking, I use Gnote on the desktop, and I use the Notes app on my phone for notes I need to carry with me. So I guess I don't use any analog note-taking or storage methods at all. I'm almost like, I'm not sure that I could write for very long without my wrist hurting. It's been too long since I did a lot of it. Let's see. Let's try to catch up here. Michael Aldrich says, love the car talk about getting work done. I like the term excellence culture, where everyone expects good work from each other and it helps everyone. Serenity is a great thing you've done. Well, thank you, Michael, for saying that. And nice to see you here. It's been forever since I last spoke to you, so nice to see you in the office hours. And yeah, that was a well-received car talk. I think a lot of people really liked it, and I kept thinking after I posted it that like, wow, I'm really giving out just the most basic advice. But I had to like push myself to remember that this was not basic advice to me at one point. Like I couldn't figure this out. So surely there's somebody out there who doesn't know it either. And it seems like it really resonated with people. So thank you for saying that. Philip H. says, Mr. Swedish Cowboy, indeed. Spencer, hello Spencer, nice to see you here too. Says, does it ever get uncomfortable working in a closet? Do you usually leave the door open for fresh air when not recording? Asking the real questions. Yes, it does get uncomfortable. And if I go for too long, I start to run out of oxygen, and then I get really stupid. So I've almost like turned that limitation into a strength, because I know that if I take too long to finish a video, then I will run out of oxygen and be unable to finish just because my brain shuts down. So it's one more thing that sort of pushes me to stick under the 2-hour limit. But when I'm not recording or streaming, then I leave the door open for sure. And actually, when I stream, I have the door open a little bit, just to let a little bit of oxygen in here, because interestingly, streaming like this seems harder for the brain than programming. I guess just having to sort of respond to random incoming questions is, to me, more difficult than engaging with a programming task. And Spencer goes on saying, if I had my computer in that small of a space, it would get so hot I would be sweating. Maybe that's a good thing in Sweden. Compute and warm house at the same time. Yeah, it does get a little bit hot. And in the summer, it does get a little bit unbearable. Actually, I had some summertime videos that I posted where I didn't show the webcam in the video, because it was so warm in here that it was not in the budget to wear a shirt, let's say. So that's why I have some webcam-less programming videos. Oh, Philip with the super chat. Thank you very much, Philip. He says, Happy New Year, SerenityOS. Happy New Year to you too, Philip. That is very nice to see you here. I wonder how Philip's YouTube channel has been going. I know Philip is working on the GCC Rust thing. And a while back, he talked about making YouTube videos about it. And but I don't know if that actually carried on, so I don't want to imply that there's some kind of continuity here, but I know Philip has a YouTube channel and he has made videos about it in the past, so definitely an interesting project, making an alternative implementation of the Rust language based on GCC. Very, very cool. And thanks for the super chat again, Philip. Very nice to see you. Let's see. Paul Rat says, ancient texts are a source of wisdom. Serenity is the source of an operating system. That is accurate. Aria says, is this Unix based or it's from scratch? It is Unix-like from scratch. Yes. Let's see. Valtteri says, you started using Git fairly early on in 2005. How has it changed since then, if at all? So yeah, I was using Git pretty early, but I didn't really learn many features of it. For my first 5 years of using Git, I just used it as if it were Subversion. And I didn't care about making branches or anything. I thought of it as like Subversion with a local copy of the history. And to me, that was already awesome. Like the fact that I could do git blame and then not wait for however long for the server to return the blame to me, or I could do git log and read the history without being online. That was kick-ass. And I was so impressed with local history that I didn't even think to investigate more features until years later. But I think also I primarily used Git to work on things by myself. So, when you're just building something yourself, Git you don't get that much out of Git outside of the local history, local functionality compared to Subversion. But when you start working with more people and branches and stuff, then of course Git starts to really shine. Let's see. Krister says that the shirtless video can be found on my Patreon. Actually, you can find it on my OnlyFriends. which is, of course, where I post all of my shirtless content. Let's see. Spencer says, hardcore, O2. Yeah, right. Oxygen-driven development. You're a hero. I'm a hero or I'm stupid. I'm not sure which one. But yes, using oxygen deprivation to hurry up programming is effective, let's say. Stephen Hokins says, have you ever contributed to the Linux kernel? If so, what was it, and did it get merged upstream? I have never had a patch integrated into the upstream Linux kernel. I have made patches for the Linux kernel that were used in downstream embedded products and like downstream embedded forks that were proprietary, but I never actually pushed anything upstream. And the stuff that I did downstream was mostly related to USB modems and getting 5G modems to work on Linux before they were commercially available, which required a little bit of hacks, let's say. Paul says, and that is why my PC is in a different room than my screens, on the other side of the wall, making cable management actually kind of easy since it's an empty wall. Dude, that is the dream. That would be super kick-ass. Unfortunately, I don't even know what's on the other side of this wall. I'm in an apartment building, and there's no apartment over there. I think maybe it's a storage room or something, but it's not my storage room, so I can't put my computer in there. But, you know, one day, someday, we will move to a bigger place where I can put the computer somewhere else, and that will be very nice when that happens. But all in good time. Susie Bros says, Sweden seems like a beautiful country. Do you ever go hiking or such? Well, no, not really. I struggle with hiking because I get like a little bit bored. It's too slow for my taste. I do love bicycling though. So that I do, let's say, a few times a year. Because then it's more fun, it's fast, and it is indeed beautiful. We have all kinds of nature here, and all kinds of seasons. There's a great variety throughout the year, so if you like nature, you can find all types of it here. It's not like I used to live in San Francisco, where I always felt like things never really changed that much. Like San Francisco is almost the same the whole year round. And Sweden is not like that. Sweden, you get a great variety. Philip says, more content. It's on its way next week. That is great news. So let's keep our eyes on Philip's YouTube channel and see what's happening with that. The Ubuntu fan says, for the utilities like zip, what namespace should they be wrapped in? Oh, that's a good question. What does zip look like? So zip, I guess, I mean, at the moment it's just a main file. It just has the one file, right? So there's nothing to wrap. If you had classes or a bunch of functions or something, it might make sense to move them, but like, since there isn't anything, I would say if this thing had a whole bunch of classes, I would make a namespace and call it zip, like that. Not like that, but like that, because this is the name of the program. Yeah, that's what I would do, but we don't have any classes here. Harris says, do you ever listen to anything from Jonathan Blow or the Jai programming language? Not for a long time. I listened to some of his stuff in the past. I was a big fan of Braid, the game, when it came out. And I was interested to learn more about, the stuff behind it. But eventually, I guess I lost interest in Jonathan's stream and his programming language. I guess I'm a little bit skeptical of anything that isn't open source. That's just a bias that I have. To me, it seems like if you're going to do something like that, like a programming language, then you would want to do it publicly with open source and just make it available. So for that reason, I just lost interest in what he was doing. Michael says the Sweden tourist group should be paying you. They are welcome to do that. Out of all the things in the world, I don't think I ever thought of myself as a tourism promoter, but it is a lovely country. I mean, Swedish nature. I mean, come on. You got all kinds of stuff, right? Look at this. Look at the vistas. So many vistas. It's a lovely place. Chihiro says, cool, my working week just ended. Hello there. Hello to you. It's nice to have office hours at the end of everybody's working week. And I feel like we found just the right spot for it, where it's like the weekend is about to start and people are getting ready to start hacking on open source stuff and just hobby projects and pet projects and stuff like that. And then I try to do what I can to get everybody hyped up about their weekend hacks. And you all certainly helped me get hyped up about weekend hacks as well. Aria says, did you use C or C++? I have used both. Today I use only C++. I never use C because I don't need to use C. So I would only use it if I really had to for some reason. Valtteri says, the Midsummer movie ruined Swedish countryside for me. Yeah, I think a lot of people had that experience after watching Midsummer. That movie was unpleasant, let's say. I was just talking to somebody about this, like how I struggle to watch horror movies lately. And it almost feels like part of growing up is accepting to myself that I'm not comfortable with horror movies. Like, they make me feel bad. And I used to watch them as a kid because I thought it was cool. But the older I get, the more I have to realize that this just makes me uncomfortable. Why am I watching this? And Midsummer is a great example of something that just makes me really uncomfortable. And why am I watching this? Sebastian Bela says, why C object not named CPP object? So the C is an old macro. So the C object came from libcore, which is where it's defined. So, but it used to not even be libcore because before times, and the long ago, it was called C object, like this. And then we had a macro called C object that you would put if you inherited from C object. But, you know, time happened and development happened, and eventually C object became core object. But the C object has stuck around, the macro. And of course, it has a distant cousin named Q object from Qt, which also uses this macro that you slap at the top of your classes like this to inject various things from the Qt meta object system. And I think that was obviously a huge inspiration for the name of our macro. Valtteri says, I'm usually okay, but Midsummer was so deeply unpleasant and uncomfortable. Yes, definitely agree. Chihiro says, but it's so easy to lose motivation to work on some open source project or pet project after working on outsourced project with all these calls, team leads, managers, deadlines, and so on. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's like that with many jobs. They do make you tired, obviously, and the less control you have over the work you do at your job, like the more frustrating it can get. And I really think that's a big part of what makes work frustrating, is that you don't have autonomy. And for that reason, I'm a big fan of spending your free time and your weekend working on programming projects where you have full autonomy, or like a high degree of autonomy compared to the stuff you do at your day job, where you have nobody telling you what to do, and you're free to experiment and like hack on little silly things that you wouldn't have a business case for at work, right? Maybe try out new data structures, algorithms, stuff like that. Because that stuff is rejuvenating. Like, it's rejuvenating to have more creative freedom. And if you choose to sort of not do programming in your free time because you get so tired of it at work, I do kind of think that puts you into a negative spiral where the only programming you do is the sort of negative reinforcement programming. And then you just spiral into eventually hating programming. So it seems to me that it's important, if you want to continue to love programming, you have to make time and space for it in your life so that you can do it without anybody breathing down your neck sometimes. Let's see. Joseph says, do you overload the new operator anywhere in SerenityOS? Sure, many places. Operator new. If you search for operator new in the codebase, you will find a bunch of different places. And we also override operator delete in a handful of places, like in our user space string implementation, for example. We have a custom delete function, and there are a few different reasons to override it. But in this case, for example, we override operator delete because we have a special version of the free function that also takes the size of the memory being freed, and it's able to do a better job of fast free. So we want to call that if we can. So since we have the size of the allocation, we're able to compute that here. We actually make sure we pass that in. Things like that. But yeah, we do override it in a handful of places. And then somebody whose name I don't know how to pronounce, which we're going to figure out right now. Shamil? Is that it? Shamil. Wait, am I saying that's right? No. I'm not. That's Basayev. Basayev. Okay. Wait, let's do the whole thing. Danil Basayev. Okay. Danil, what's your take on using languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript for the interface of applications? Well, in practical terms, it seems to always end badly when people do that. Based on the applications that I use daily that are built on these technologies, it seems difficult to build performant applications with this stack, and they also seem to end up very resource hungry. So I am skeptical about the potential to build like really good performant applications on this stack. At the same time, it is also very easy and very fast to build apps on this stack, so I understand why people do it. I think I'm interested in the potential of removing HTML and CSS and building applications that use more of a native GUI toolkit, but use JavaScript for application logic. I feel like that's an area that doesn't get explored enough, and I'm kind of curious to explore that area myself, and see what we can do with that. We're certainly getting closer to a position where we could start making experiments like that. And we have many applications in SerenityOS that don't have particularly performance sensitive UI logic, right? So I'm curious to see what you could do with that. If you could drastically simplify some applications by making them in JavaScript, but at this point I can only speculate, right? Like we would have to see it in practice and also see what would be the complexity cost of binding these things together. Michael says, I'm working with Qt a lot lately. What did you feel you got right/better in Serenity's GUI toolkit? And the trickier question, what does Qt get better? Well, Qt is certainly a lot more mature. So they do have a lot of things in Qt are better when it comes to like integrating with various data providers and things like that. Like they have the model view APIs are very, very nice, very sophisticated. And there's a high degree of, how do you call it? Like they have these like very nice invalidation mechanisms that that are supported by all their native views, and our views are really clunky. And this is like a long running theme or long running bug in SerenityOS, that we have very granular view updates. And it's something that we keep talking about improving, and it's been slowly improving every now and then. But in Qt, all of that stuff is like works really well out of the box, really mature. So you can do things like have like a hierarchical data model, and you can move things between the different nodes, and the view gets invalidated only in the part it needs to get invalidated, stuff like that. And I think the Qt also has a much better meta object system than we do. We have a very basic set of key value properties on core object, and it's very limited in what it can do, and it has a very high initialization cost and very high memory cost as well, the way we've implemented it. And what Qt does with mock and Qt meta object is like strictly better in every way. I think like we have these properties here, and as hinted by the fact that we are in an object constructor, this is setting up a per object mapping of property name to getter and setter, and it works very differently in Qt, and I would love to steal some of their great ideas about that at some point. But I guess the things that we do better, I feel like Qt has really old style ownership API. If you, let's see, so say that I wanted to do some, it's been a while since I did Qt stuff, but like you would do something like this, right? And now none of this will work, obviously, because we're not in Qt, but so like it's similar to the way you program in Serenity, but in Qt you can just like put a widget on the stack like this, and then it will get the lifetime is just magically handled correctly, and you can also put another widget that you make with new instead, and the lifetime of this thing will be managed by its parent, which you pass in here. And all of this type of stuff, I feel like we do a lot better because we just have straightforward reference counting for all of the GUI stack. Like it's based on libcore's core object, and those are reference counted, and then everything in the GUI layer ends up using reference counting as a consequence of that. And I think that is a lot nicer than what you end up with in Qt. Although when like the first iteration of libgui was built in the same way as Qt, and I remember when we were switching to reference counting, it seemed like, oh, why are we doing this? Like, this is going to make it so much harder to reason about. But the end result, I feel like, is much, much nicer, because now you never have to think about when does something get deleted, because there are no magical rules. Like, there's only basic reference counting. Like, it will get deleted when there's nobody referencing it anymore. Previously, it was like, well, you know, it might get deleted next time the event loop runs, or when its parent goes out of scope, or So Qt has a bunch of magic to make up for missing functionality in C++ when it was first designed, and they are still living with some of the workarounds for C++ 98 or whatever was current back then. And that's not to say that Qt is not modern. It's just a lot of things that are sort of fundamental to its DNA are from another time. Like it predates modern C++, right? And it still feels like it was made for an older version of C++. Tim Schumann says, wait, Qt is how you pronounce cute? How did I just learn this? Yes, that is indeed how you pronounce Qt. And I can tell you this for sure because I used to work on the Qt team at Nokia. So this is the official answer. Let's see. Gabe Genorio says, I assume asking about JavaScript-based applications is really asking about Electron-based apps. Possibly, right? Old says, Qt is always how I've said it. Qt is QuickTime. At least that's something that I quickly learned when I worked on WebKit, because WebKit integrates both, or back then when I started working on WebKit, they had integration both with QuickTime and with Qt. And in WebKit, everybody knew that Qt was QuickTime and Qt was Qt. Of course, it's not always the case that you have both Qt and Qt to force you to disambiguate. Simon Lunar says, what are fly strings for? Fly string is for deduplication of strings. So let me show you how that works. They are mostly interchangeable with strings from an API usage perspective. And what you can do with fly string, say that you make a fly string that has foo in it, and then I make another fly string. Wait, what is it offering me? I'm trying to figure out what this underscore thing here is about. Oh, it went away. Okay, anyway. If I do this, then with normal strings, this would create two separate strings, right? Nothing strange about that. These are two separate memory allocations that both contain foo. With fly string, magic happens behind the scenes so that the same string, fly string is always using the same shared underlying data. So foo here and bar, they will both point to the same underlying data. They will not have separate string buffers. And there are a bunch of interesting benefits to this. So one is that you save memory. If you have the same string occurring many times, then you only get one copy in memory. And you also get the benefit that if you are comparing strings, so say that you're like iterating over a whole bunch of strings, right? Lots of strings. And then you want to find out if one of these strings is your foo string. So if you do this, well, actually, let's say that we are iterating over a set of fly strings, right? When you compare two fly strings, because we know that two fly strings with identical content always point to the same string data, comparing two of these, we don't have to go character by character to figure out if they are identical. As long as they point to the same underlying data, we know that they're identical. So it makes string comparison constant time rather than linear time or quadratic time or whatever, or linear time. Yeah, so it makes a string comparison constant time, which is extremely nice if you are doing a ton of string compares. Let's see. Green Coder says, I found this channel when you had about 100 subscribers. I feel motivated when I see other people code. I saw your post on r/watch people code. I turn on your videos on the background when I code. Sweet. Well, nice to see somebody from the 100 subscribers days. It was definitely a little bit different, but not too different. I mean, we're still doing essentially the same stuff, just that the software that we're working on has improved considerably, and I guess I became a little bit more comfortable with everything. So nice to see that you're still here. I really appreciate that. Kyle Williams says, have you seen Node Qt? Also, if you want to do this with SerenityOS, you should take a look at Linus's JavaScript bindings again. Yeah, Linus's famous JavaScript bindings. Someday they will come back. I have to pour some of my tea into my cup here instead of drinking from a thermos. I don't know what I was thinking. So Cold Coffee says, on behalf of my friend BuyRam, he asks, why do some command line apps use single and double hyphen parameters, e.g. -param and --param? It seems to be inconsistent on multiple occasions. So I don't know that there is a good answer to that, but is that something that's happening in Serenity, or are you talking about like command line applications in general, like random Linux or BSD apps? Generally speaking, I think --, is part of the GNU style. Like all GNU programs tend to offer --, options, and many other programs that are not part of GNU have also decided to adopt the --, format. And it seems to me like a reasonable thing to do, --, to differentiate between single character and multiple character options. But I don't know why some apps choose to do it this way. If we have something in Serenity that does this, which I'm not aware of, but then we should probably stop doing that. Let's see. Even Kai says, I watched one of your car talk videos, which you said although you hate C++, but you still don't consider new language like Rust. I don't hate C++, and I also don't not consider new languages. It seems like you did not really pay attention to what I was saying in the video. Have you tried out Rust, and what do you think of Rust in detail? I don't have a strong opinion on Rust because I have not written more than 100,000 lines of Rust, and I don't think that if somebody hasn't written a lot of code in a language, then you don't need to hear their opinion about it. I have written some Rust, and I am absolutely interested in new languages and old languages. I don't hate C++. But I can't come up with a list of little things about C++ that I dislike. But none of them make me hate the language. Yeah. It's interesting that, but my perspective on Rust has definitely changed in the time since I made the video that you're referring to, because back then people were asking me almost every day, "Hey Andreas, what do you think about Rust?" Or they would tell me that I was also getting regular messages from people telling me that I'm an idiot for using C++ and I should be using Rust. That was something I would get almost every day at one point, but for some reason that stopped. But back then I guess I had like a bit of a bad impression of the Rust community because people kept being really unpleasant about it. Nowadays, it's not like that at all, and I have many friends who use Rust, or friends who even work on the Rust core team. So I have very different feelings about Rust today, but I still prefer C++ by far. And it's nice to see that the community around Rust has matured a little bit. Let's see. Kyle Williams says, is ACK_string immutable? Are there any downsides to using fly_string everywhere? ACK_string is immutable, yes. Both ACK_string and ACK_fly_string are immutable, and you can not through the natural use of the API, mutate them. Of course, it's C++, so you can grab a character pointer and then const cast away the constness and then poke into the string if you really want to. But we do what we can to discourage you from doing that. The main downside of using fly_string everywhere is that when you construct the fly_string, in order to deduplicate it, we have to go and find if there's like if there's already an existing foo, like in this case. So this first construction here, we go and we look in a global string table if we already have a foo, right? If we don't have one, then we create one and insert it into the global fly_string table. The second time, when we're going to construct this, again, we have to go and look in the global fly_string table. Then that time we find one, so we use that instead of constructing a new one and inserting it. So the end result of that is that we have to keep a global fly_string table, which is right here in flystring.cpp. You can find our hash table of fly_strings, and this has a bit of a cost. So the hash lookup itself is probably cheaper than the memory allocation, but it does mean that we have to grow this table. So if you were to just put every string as a fly_string, you would have this table just growing and growing every time that you add more strings. So it's a trade-off, right? Because essentially, if you have a string that is only ever used once, there's absolutely nothing to gain from making it a fly_string because nobody else will deduplicate to it, and you just bloat this string table, so you only lose from doing that. So as a rule of thumb, like, we don't use fly_string unless we have a strong reason to believe that this is going to be frequently occurring. Farhan says, Andreas, if you were a black hat hacker, you would be a great threat. Glad that's not the case. When I was a younger man, I liked the idea of being a cool hacker, but thankfully I had no skills to back it up, so I couldn't really do that much damage. And by the time I had grown up and gained the skills to be useful as a black hat hacker, I had completely lost any interest in the dark side. So nowadays I still enjoy the various disciplines surrounding hacking and exploitation and things like that, but I have absolutely no desire to inflict any kind of damage on any other person or their software. Let's see. Ubiquity says, what other languages apart from C++ have you extensively written code with? Have you done anything with Java or C#? I have not used these two languages extensively. I have written a lot of C and a lot of JavaScript, although none of it particularly good. I just wrote a lot of it because I wrote a lot of little test cases. But I have written a lot of PHP, although it's been a while now. I think the last PHP version I really used was like PHP 5. I don't know when that came out. 2004. Yeah, so it's been a while. I have some ancient familiarity with PHP. I wrote many thousands lines of PHP back then, but as you can maybe imagine, it was almost 20 years ago. My skills were maybe a little bit worse than they are today. So it's probably not the most beautiful code, and I'm probably wouldn't be particularly proud of it if I was able to pull it up right now. Let's see. Paul was saying that short options and long options can be compressed. Yeah, that's a benefit of the short options, of course, that you can combine them. So like -e-o can become -eo. I always thought that was kind of neat. Lucas Magnusson says, just add every possible string combination to a hash table so that you never have to allocate new strings. That, my friend, is the galaxy brain strategy right there. This is you right now. Very impressive. But yes. And there is one thing that we actually do, which is a little bit similar to that strategy, full disclosure, but it's not a hash table. It is the JavaScript VM has single ASCII character string cache, and it's just an array here where we pre-generate every possible single character ASCII string for JavaScript. And it turns out that single character strings are really, really common in JavaScript runtimes. And by caching these, it means that we can avoid allocating a new JavaScript string whenever we encounter a single character string. And I think I know of at least one other JavaScript engine that has this optimization, and it's just an obviously good optimization when you see how often it gets hit if you put a little printf whenever it gets hit. Because dodging allocations in JavaScript is the name of the game. At least if you don't do it, it becomes the name of the game. Tim Schumann says, I think you've just uninvented Bitcoin. Yeah, that's right. Laurel Marge says, does Andreas enjoy capture the flags? I have not participated properly in a CTF myself, although I have been the target of CTFs, or SerenityOS has been the target of CTFs, which was a lot of fun. And I wish it would happen again. It used to be a Christmas tradition, but for some reason it didn't happen this Christmas. So I guess we're just waiting for the next thing. There was a CTF a while ago. Oh, what was that? Somebody had a browser, SerenityOS browser CTF something. There was a challenge. Perfect Blue was the name of it. Yeah, Perfect Blue CTF. Bruiser. They had a SerenityOS browser themed challenge in their CTF back in October. That was cool, and I would love to see more of them. Somebody said that the system has become a little bit too secure to make an easy CTF target, which might be true, although I think it could still be an advanced CTF target for extra points or something. Well, what do I know? Maybe I have to organize my own CTF if I want to get people to hack it. Anyway, it seems like we have reached the end of office hours. So I want to thank everybody for coming, for all the lovely questions and comments, for all the super chats and all the support. I really appreciate that you always come and show up here and make Friday into such a nice lead in to the weekend. So the oxygen levels are running low indeed, and it's time to go outside and breathe. Thank you all for coming. If you end up working on Serenity this weekend, please come to the Discord and have a chat with us. Tell us what you're working on and share the fun. I will see you all next time. Bye.